Connie Margada graced the world with her presence on July 31st, 1976, in the charming town of Rockville, Connecticut, born to the esteemed Cindy and Kenneth. As the third of four siblings, she shared her childhood with two sisters, Marlise and Leslie, and a brother named Keith. The Margada family flourished in the picturesque locales of Vernon and Ellington. Connie's academic journey led her to Ellington High School, from which she proudly graduated in 1995. She then pursued higher education at the University of Connecticut, earning her undergraduate degree in 1999. Shortly thereafter, she embarked on a successful career as a pharmaceutical sales representative with Reckitt Benckiser. Those fortunate enough to know Connie often spoke of her as a person of remarkable warmth and generosity, always willing to go above and beyond for her loved ones. She was surrounded by a multitude of friends and effortlessly charmed everyone she encountered. In the early 2000s, Connie confided in her closest companions about a captivating man named Richard Debate, who had captured her heart. He was strikingly handsome and treated Connie with the utmost reverence, as if she were royalty. Upon meeting Richard's family, it was evident to them that Connie was destined to be his partner. Known affectionately as Rick, he was born on July 29, 1976, to Richard Sr. and Julie Debate, and spent his formative years in Manchester, Connecticut, graduating from Manchester High School in 1995. Following his high school education, Rick pursued technical training, which paved the way for his career in computer network administration. On July 4, 2003, he and Connie exchanged vows, welcoming two sons, Richard and Connor, into their lives. Connie embraced her role as a devoted mother, while Rick appeared to embody the ideal husband and family man. The Debate family resided in a home on Birchview Drive in Ellington, where two of Connie's closest friends, Peggy and Darlene, also lived. Their families frequently gathered, with Peggy and Darlene often playfully teasing Rick about his attentive nature towards Connie. To the outside world, the Debates seemed to lead a flawless life, seemingly possessing everything one could desire. However, beneath the surface, subtle fissures began to emerge. December 23, 2015, commenced like any other day, a Wednesday filled with the joyous spirit of the approaching Christmas holiday. At 8:10 a.m., Rick dropped the children off at the nearby bus stop, while Connie prepared for a spin class at the local YMCA. The events that followed remained shrouded in ambiguity, as Rick has provided numerous conflicting accounts. Initially, he informed investigators that after dropping off the boys, he returned home to change into his work attire. Once ready, he departed at 8:30 a.m. for his 40-minute commute to work. He had not traveled far down the road when the realization struck him. His laptop remained at home. Without it, Rick wouldn't be able to work, prompting him to swiftly grab his cell phone and inform his supervisor via email that he would be delayed. As he glanced at his device, a security alert caught his eye, indicating that a silent alarm had been triggered at his residence. He included this alarming detail in his message. With urgency, Rick turned back and entered his home with caution. A noise from upstairs piqued his curiosity, and upon investigation it became clear that someone was in their master bedroom. The door stood ajar, and as Rick peered inside, he was met with the sight of a masked intruder. The imposing figure, a man towering at approximately 6 feet 2 inches, was clad in a dark green camouflage outfit and mask. Brandishing a knife, the intruder demanded, "Hand over your money, your wallet, and your pins, or I'll wait for your wife and kids." His voice resonated deeply, reminiscent of Vin Diesel. In less than a minute of confrontation, Rick heard the unmistakable sound of their garage door opening. Connie had returned early due to a canceled class. In a frantic attempt to warn her of the imminent danger, Rick shouted her name. The intruder, now shifting his focus to Connie, and Rick found themselves in a desperate race to reach her first. During the ensuing struggle, Rick was forcefully pushed down the stairs, leaving him momentarily disoriented. The intruder slipped past him, pursuing Connie into the basement. Regaining his footing, Rick rushed to her aid, but it was too late. As he barreled down the stairs, a gunshot echoed through the house, its deafening sound impairing his hearing for several minutes. The intruder then redirected his attention to Rick, overpowering him with a precise pressure point technique that sent him collapsing to the ground. The next moment, Rick found himself partially restrained to a metal folding chair with zip ties. The intruder seized a box cutter from Rick's toolbox and caused minor injuries to Rick's body. Subsequently, the intruder picked up a blowtorch and began to set various items ablaze. He attempted to direct the blowtorch at Rick, but Rick managed to seize it from him with his free hand. In a swift move, Rick aimed the blowtorch at the intruder's face, inflicting burns. Although Rick had previously mentioned that the intruder was wearing a mask, the entire encounter unfolded over a span of 5 minutes, culminating in Rick successfully scaring the intruder away after the blowtorch incident. According to the original timeline, this indicated that it was no later than 9:05 a.m. However, Rick did not contact the police until 10:21 a.m. Meanwhile, state troopers were already en route, having received an automatic alert from the security company at 10:16 a.m. regarding a triggered alarm at the residence. This alert is typically sent to authorities immediately, raising questions as to why it was not dispatched, following the alert that Rick reportedly observed shortly after 8:30 a.m. The first responder to arrive at 7 Birchview Drive was a member of the Ellington Fire Department. He observed that the front door was ajar, while the storm door remained closed. After knocking and receiving no response, he entered the premises. Inside, he detected a faint layer of smoke lingering in the air. The basement door was open, and a trail of blood droplets led from the basement to the kitchen. Following the trail, he discovered Rick, who was still bound to a folding chair and lying face down on the kitchen floor. Rick informed the man that he is still in the house, referring to the intruder. The man promptly called for backup, categorizing the incident as a home invasion, which soon brought a surge of officers to the scene. Their immediate focus was on locating the gunman. Investigators began documenting the situation within the house, capturing multiple images of Rick on the floor, illustrating how he had been restrained to the metal chair. Notably, only Rick's left hand and left ankle were secured with zip ties. Connie was located in the boiler room of the basement. She had suffered 2 gunshot wounds, one piercing her abdomen and the other striking the back of her head. Tragically, she was declared dead at the scene. This incident had escalated beyond a mere home invasion. K-9 units swiftly arrived, eager to trace the path taken by the assailant. However, the dogs seemed singularly fixated on one individual, Rick Debate. One of the K-9s discovered Rick's wallet on the lawn, likely discarded by the intruder in haste. Yet, the dogs were unable to pick up a scent leading away from the residence. Instead, they guided their handlers to the ambulance where Rick was receiving treatment for his minor injuries. From the outset, investigators noted inconsistencies in Rick's account. He was transported to Hartford Hospital, where he was first interrogated about the day's events. He recounted the presence of an intruder to the investigators, claiming he witnessed the man shoot Connie in the basement. Following his narrative, the investigators posed additional questions, during which they observed subtle shifts in Rick's story, an immediate cause for concern. Discrepancies arose regarding the alarm system, the timing of the alarm's activation, and whether he had triggered it himself. Initially, Rick asserted he had departed before Connie dropped off the boys. This later morphed into a vague recollection of not remembering who left first. The next alteration pertained to the noise upstairs. He initially claimed he heard nothing upon entering, but later stated he noticed the bedroom light was illuminated before encountering the intruder rummaging through their closet. The narrative continued to evolve regarding the staircase. Rick had first claimed he was pushed down, but subsequently stated he had merely tripped. Most crucial to the investigators was the matter of the firearm. The weapon that claimed Connie's life was a .357 Magnum, one of Rick's own firearms kept within the home. Initially, he expressed uncertainty about how the intruder obtained the gun from Connie, but later recounted witnessing a struggle between Connie and the assailant over the weapon. The man wrested it from Connie's grasp before turning the weapon on her. Meanwhile, the basement remained shrouded in darkness throughout this harrowing episode. It was reported that Rick recounted to investigators how he managed to drag himself up the stairs, still bound to the metal chair. Upon regaining consciousness, he located his cell phone and called for assistance, all the while calling out for Connie, yearning for a response. The placement of Rick's injuries raised eyebrows. The wounds on his chest were exclusively on the left side, while those on his legs were conveniently within reach of his right hand. This detail captured the attention of the investigators. Notably, there were no signs of injuries that would indicate he had been pushed or had fallen down the stairs. The dried blood from the box cutter marks did not trickle down the sides of his legs, as one would expect if the injuries had been sustained while seated in the metal chair. Another striking inconsistency was the absence of blood leading up the stairs. If Rick had indeed dragged himself from the basement to the kitchen, one would anticipate more substantial evidence of that journey. Instead, only a few droplets were found along that route, with drag marks solely present in the kitchen, suggesting that Rick had walked upstairs before collapsing there. Investigators were also puzzled by Rick's apparent indifference to Connie's condition. The evidence indicated he had not approached her body after she was shot, as the pool of blood surrounding her remained undisturbed. They sought to uncover how an intruder could have gained access to the home, hypothesizing that entry was made through an open basement window, given the absence of forced entry elsewhere. Yet, this theory posed its own questions. The locks on the basement window had been removed from the inside and carelessly left on the windowsill. An intruder would have faced considerable difficulty accessing these locks from outside without causing significant damage. Thus, the question lingered. Why would Rick or Connie have removed these locks without promptly replacing them? It is a common practice for investigators to interview individuals who were closest to a victim in order to gain insights into their life and any potential issues they may have faced. After discussing the events of that morning, the investigators inquired about Rick's relationship with Connie. He initially stated that things had been relatively good, but he also mentioned that Connie had been experiencing some difficulties recently. She was struggling with depression and had become unusually irritable, a stark contrast to her typically cheerful demeanor as a mother of two. However, Rick noted that Connie appeared to be gradually returning to her former self. The investigators then directly questioned Rick about whether their investigation might uncover any issues in their relationship, to which he responded, yes and no. Rick disclosed that he had been involved in an affair, but he provided context for this situation. He explained that both he and Connie had desired to expand their family, but health challenges had hindered their efforts. Connie was unable to conceive, and after several unsuccessful attempts, they opted to consider alternative options. Rick shared that he had reconnected with Sarah, an old high school friend who had recently gone through a divorce and also wished to have a child. Together, the three of them devised a plan in which Rick would father a child with Sarah. Due to the high costs associated with artificial insemination, they agreed that Rick would engage in a physical relationship with Sarah to achieve this goal. He emphasized that Connie was fully supportive of the arrangement, even suggesting that it was primarily her idea. As for the parenting arrangement, all three intended to co-parent the child collectively. The investigators found this narrative perplexing and expressed skepticism regarding Connie's willingness to agree to such an arrangement. They continued to probe Rick for more details, and once again, his account began to evolve. He informed them that their child was expected in February 2016. Yet, when questioned about Connie's awareness of the pregnancy, he evaded providing a clear response to the investigators. If this had indeed been Connie's initiative, one would assume she would have been privy to the joyous news as soon as Rick was. Furthermore, Rick claimed that Connie and Sarah had never engaged in conversation. This revelation significantly undermined his narrative regarding Connie's participation in the scheme and their prospective co-parenting arrangement. As the dialogue progressed, the truth began to surface. Rick had been disloyal to Connie for years prior to her untimely demise. Sarah's pregnancy was also an unexpected turn of events. The investigators did not conceal their skepticism, asserting that Rick's entire account was riddled with inconsistencies and that the evidence found at their residence contradicted his version of events from that morning. He maintained that he bore no responsibility for Connie's fate. Following the revelation of Rick's infidelity, the investigators shifted their focus to locating Sarah, who provided a statement later that day. Sarah acknowledged her awareness of Connie and Rick's marriage, but claimed that Rick had assured her he was pursuing a divorce. He portrayed their relationship as one fraught with unhappiness, suggesting that the divorce was a mutual agreement. Sarah discovered her pregnancy on June 18, 2015, and chose to wait until August to inform Rick. However, upon learning the news, Rick falsely claimed he had recently engaged a divorce attorney. In reality, Sarah and Rick were still involved in a relationship shortly before Connie's tragic passing, even embarking on a trip to Vermont in mid-December 2015. During this getaway, they deliberated on how to disclose the situation to Connie, with Rick preferring to wait until after the holiday season. Subsequent inquiries with Connie's closest confidants revealed that she would never have accepted the notion of Rick fathering a child with another woman. Connie confided in her friends about everything, Yet she never mentioned Sarah or the circumstances surrounding the child. Had she discovered Rick's infidelity, she would have certainly confided in them. While Connie's friends remained unaware of Rick's betrayal, his acquaintances were well informed about his relationship with Sarah and her impending motherhood. He confided in a friend about his deep affection for Sarah and his fears that Connie might abandon him. From the outset, the investigation team found themselves in a delicate situation. Although they suspected Rick's involvement in his wife's tragic demise, they chose to keep this information confidential from the public eye. To those outside the realm of law enforcement, the narrative suggested that an intruder had invaded their home, resulting in Connie's untimely death and leaving Rick injured. Those in Rick's inner circle had not even entertained the notion that he could be linked to Connie's passing, and they mourned alongside him. Despite having a primary suspect, the investigators remained committed to examining every avenue. The debates had indeed encountered individuals who might harbor ill intentions towards them. They were embroiled in a protracted legal dispute with a contractor who had worked on their residence. Connie and Rick had taken the man to small claims court due to numerous issues with his workmanship, and Connie had voiced her concerns regarding her safety. The contractor proved to be a challenging adversary, and Connie's vehicle had been vandalized on 2 occasions in 2015, leading her to suspect the contractor's involvement. Following these unsettling events, the debates opted to enhance their security measures and acquire firearms. The contractor's name surfaced repeatedly during interviews with friends of Connie and Rick after her death. Yet this lead dissipated when it was revealed that he possessed a solid alibi for the day of the incident, and did not match Rick's description of the supposed intruder. While law enforcement remained the only faction to suspect Rick's connection to Connie's death, many observed peculiar behavior from him. His demeanor did not reflect the expected grief. Shortly after the tragedy, Rick posted a message in the neighborhood group inquiring about preferred takeout options. It was peculiar for a man who had recently endured the loss of his wife under such harrowing circumstances. As investigators delved deeper into the intricacies of the debate's lives, they unearthed significant financial troubles. Expenses were outpacing income, leaving Connie feeling as though the weight of the world rested solely on her shoulders. She confided in a close friend about her contemplation of separating from Rick, even maintaining a file on her notes app titled Reasons for Divorce. The list included Rick's deceit, his mistreatment of her, his inadequacies as a father to their sons, and his self-centeredness. Financial motives often lurk in the shadows of such cases, and by mid-January 2016, investigators discovered 2 life insurance policies held by Connie and Rick, each valued at an impressive $475,000. However, it was revealed that only Connie's policy remained active, as Rick's had lapsed due to non-payment. Remarkably, Rick waited a mere 5 days to claim Connie's insurance payout, in addition to receiving $75,000 from her employer a month following her death. Over the course of the next year, investigators meticulously constructed their case against Rick DeBaty, executing numerous search warrants to scrutinize both Rick and Connie's phone records, financial documents, communications with external parties, security system data, and, crucially, Connie's Fitbit. The Fitbit data indicated that Connie had first been active at 7:52 a.m. on December 23rd, followed by a prolonged period of inactivity that aligned with her drive to the YMCA. Surveillance footage confirmed her arrival at the YMCA, and her Fitbit recorded another 10 minutes of inactivity during her return home, arriving around 9:20 a.m. From 9:37 a.m. to 9:43 a.m., she remained stationary, which investigators believe was merely a moment of rest. The subsequent 20 minutes showed Connie moving about normally, during which she posted videos on Facebook from her phone, linked to her home IP address. The last recorded movement from Connie's Fitbit was at precisely 10:05 a.m. This detail held immense significance, as it provided irrefutable proof that Connie's life was not taken at the moment Rick claimed. She remained alive and active until that time, a full hour after Rick alleged he had witnessed the intruder take her life. With sufficient evidence to implicate Rick DeBaty, authorities apprehended him on April 14, 2017. He faced charges of homicide, evidence tampering, and making false statements to investigators. Rick entered a plea of not guilty. The police compiled a comprehensive 50-page affidavit, which included the Fitbit data, Rick's inconsistencies, and his extramarital affair with Sarah. The news of Rick's arrest sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of Ellington, where no one had suspected him of such a heinous act. Even Connie's closest friends, who were aware of her marital struggles, believed that many couples endure hardships without resorting to violence. Bail was set at a staggering $1 million, which Rick posted without delay. Despite the overwhelming evidence, the trial was delayed twice before finally commencing on April 5, 2022. Throughout the period from his arrest to the trial, Connie's case garnered significant media attention, often referred to as the case solved by a Fitbit, a label that Connie's family found distasteful, feeling it detracted from her memory in favor of sensationalism. While the prosecution appeared to have a strong case, the defense introduced troubling evidence. Unidentified DNA was discovered in 6 distinct locations within the home, aligning with Rick's narrative of the intruder's movements from the closet, down the stairs, and into the basement. Additionally, the defense highlighted the presence of gunshot residue on Rick, which was minimal, a quantity that would be expected to be far greater had he indeed been the shooter. The prosecution adeptly countered the defense's claims by highlighting that the test was conducted several hours after the incident, allowing ample opportunity for the defendant to have cleansed or washed his hands. From the outset, the prosecution articulated a compelling motive. Rick's life was unraveling, burdened by Sarah's pregnancy and Connie's contemplation of leaving him. After a 5-week trial, on May 10, 2022, the jury deliberated for 3 hours before delivering their verdict. Richard DeBate was found guilty on all counts. At long last, Connie and her family received the justice they had sought for 6.5 arduous years. Judge Klatt imposed a sentence of 65 years in prison, characterizing the crime as a brutal, calculated, and unfathomable act. This sentence fell just 1 year shy of the maximum allowable penalty. Although his attorney indicated plans to file an appeal, it is evident that Richard will likely spend the remainder of his life incarcerated. Throughout the trial, Judge Klatt came to appreciate the remarkable woman Connie was, a devoted mother, a diligent worker, and a cherished friend to many. As Judge Klatt poignantly remarked, "The world is truly a lesser place without Connie in it.